Welcome to this episode of the Champions Podcast, and I'm gonna try not to laugh. The day's been a jacked up day, but we are so excited with myself, Champ Squires, and
You're Heather McCoy?
I think I'm struggling today. I'm
Well,
driving the
I'm
struggle
Heather
bus.
McCoy. I think that's Champ Squires tonight. And we have some special guests
Oh,
with us.
we do. Meredith and Tyler. I actually grew up with Meredith. Her grandfather was our pastor for 32, wasn't it, Meredith?
I think so, at least
Yeah,
30, maybe
at least
31,
30.
32.
So, and her husband Tyler, and they have an incredibly powerful story. They are kind of doing this on a whim, but I'm really excited just to hear their story and what the Lord has done and how they've seen Him at work in their life and in their journey of faith and parenting. So, take it away, y'all.
Thank you so much, Jill, for having us. I told Tyler I've actually been kind of nervous leading up to it because I'm like, it's our story. I don't know why I'm worried I'm going to forget, the important parts, but I wanted to make sure that we did it justice, and that we really showed what the Lord had done for us, during this time. So I'm gonna give it some background. If you're good with that. So I wanted to just kind of give a little background on mine and Tyler's story started like way before we had children, as you know, Champ. Like he grew up coming to church with us. I think you started coming when you were 16. So we've been dating since we were 15 years old. We dated all through high school, dated all through college. I went to pharmacy school. He went to culinary school, and we got married when I was in the middle of pharmacy school. And as soon as we got out, we decided, or as I got out of pharmacy school, we decided that we wanted to have a baby. And leading up to that, everything was going smoothly. Got pregnant immediately, had Easton, and that first year of life was very typical. It was very typical first year, first time parents. Um, but then around a year old was whenever we started to notice that Easton, he wasn't talking, he wasn't saying any words at this time. He wasn't looking us in the eye. He wasn't responding when we called him. Like there just wasn't much interaction at all with him. And so we started this really long process because when those kind of things happen, you get a lot of different referrals. You get speech therapy, occupational therapy. What else do we do? Early intervention. We spent a lot of his when he turned 1 to 2, getting a lot of testing done, doing a lot of evaluations. And one of the things they do when a child's not talking is that they test their hearing. And when we got Easton's hearing tested, they told us that he had a rare type of hearing loss. It was where he can hear higher frequencies, which most people, when they have hearing loss, they can't hear those. But he could hear the higher ones, but he could not hear the lower ones, which is where a lot of people talk. So a lot of the letters and talking and sounds, those all fall in those lower frequencies. Like I think they said that we don't know when his hearing loss started, but he had probably never heard Tyler's voice as of that point. They were like, or either he couldn't understand Tyler when he talked. And so, when we're going through all of this and we were getting all of this testing done, so really, I think we were excited, wouldn't you say? Like,
Yeah,
I would say, like, when we found out it was his hearing, we were actually excited because that's something you can fix.
thought it meant no autism.
Yeah, like autism had always kind of been in the back of our mind, but for us, hearing was something you could fix. When they said they were going to give him hearing aids, we were like, okay, he'll be the cutest 2-year-old you've ever seen with hearing aids. And we were really excited that that was something that you could fix. And so we got the hearing aids, and really he made some progress. I was like, but it was not as quickly like as we had hoped. Like, wasn't like he magically started talking. He didn't start, interacting with us. He did now start responding to us. Like when we would call his name, he would look at us more. Like you could tell he was taking in more. Um, but he still wasn't making a ton of progress, I would say. You interject as you want, like, but and so we got his hearing tested, he got his hearing aids. And so then where our story started before this, but sometimes I look at like January 27th of 2023 as the day like that everything changed for me. So that was the day we went for his official his autism evaluation. And when at the end of that evaluation, they told us that he had a level 3 severe nonverbal autism. And I was, I will tell you, like, Easton was the same, he was the same going in as he was going out. Like, nothing changed other than I had that official diagnosis. But I left completely broken. I was devastated. Even though it was like, okay, all we got is this piece of paper, like to me, that felt like the end. And of course, looking back, I know it was not. Like, so I'm thankful I can look back. But the day after that, so this was, like I said, January 27th was the day that he got diagnosed. The day afterwards, my parents were here with me at my house, and Chand, like you alluded to, my grandfather, he was a pastor. We've always grown up very strong in our faith. Our faith has been very important to us. But the day after his evaluation, that verse in Romans where it talks about that the Spirit will intercede for you when you don't know what to pray, I lived that verse because I sat at this table and I wailed. I'm like, there's really no other way to describe it. Like, my parents were here with me, and they cried with me because I said, I have lost all hope. I was like, I don't know what the future looks like for Easton. I was like, I'm like, how can somebody who can't talk, I'm like, how can he know Jesus? I was like, how can I teach him about Jesus? How can I, really understand what kind of life he's going to live? And it was really a really hard time because my faith was shaken, but I knew I didn't want to walk away from the Lord. I would say, Lord, I'm not walking away, but I cannot feel you. I was like, I don't know where you are in all of this. I was like, I don't know where Jesus is in autism. I was like, but I knew I didn't want to walk away. And I think Tyler handles things more internally. Like, I'm more of a external processor, but I think you would agree. Like, we were both really, really shaken.
It was the first time in our life that we were ever tested, I think, too. Like she said, like she started out to give it the context, everything up to that point had really kind of gone our way. Everything up to that point had gone just how we had wanted it to. I think that was the first time we were told no, essentially, So,
and it changes your perspective on life. And obviously, me and Champ living with, illnesses and disabilities our whole life. I think I can't imagine, because obviously I'm not a mother, and obviously Champ's not a father at this point, but we can just only imagine that the thoughts at that moment is, like you said, uncertainty of the future. How do we deal with this? What is it going to look like a month from now, 5 years from now? And then obviously bring in, well, now we're not just parents, now we're caregivers for life. Because obviously, and it took me years even around all the stuff that I've been around to actually understand autism. And I've had so much of more of appreciation because over the last years, I've really educated myself on, okay, there's this level and this level. And this is why somebody can speak. This is why we had a autistic guy on here a few months ago, and he's singing and traveling, and so it does give you hope that it's possible. And he's actually dating somebody with autism.
No.
She's different than he is, and so it's really amazing just how, as a obviously on the spectrum, people can be. But what a testimony that he's going to be able to share. And even if he never speaks 1,000 words, he's still going to be able to share his story through his actions, through his love. And so I think that's incredible. And the way that y'all have been able to stay together and say, you know what, we're not going to let this break us. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's something we'd never imagined we'd have to go through. But here we are. And what else are we going to do?
No, definitely. And I think what we asked ourselves a lot, is, Lord, why did this happen? I was like, why? I would struggle. I'd be like, Lord, I've followed you my whole life. I was like, I have never once doubted who you are and what you can do. I was like, and now you've given me this perfect baby in my eyes, like Easton was perfect, but I was like, he's going to have such a struggle, like as he grows up, and especially as he gets older, and kids his age, like bypass him with what they're doing, it's like that gap gets wider and wider. But we did, like if you ask and if you really listen, the Lord will answer those kind of questions because I asked, over and over, I was like, Lord, I don't understand why. And I've one time find myself in John, I think it's chapter 9, and it's whenever the disciples and Jesus, they come up like on this blind man and they ask him, and y'all probably have heard it, but they say, who sinned, like this man or his parents, that he would be born blind? And how he responds is kind of how we've tried to look at Easton's life. It's like neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God could be shown through him. And we've really tried, I think, to cling to that like we're on here sharing a story that we didn't want, but we are thankful that this is the path we've had to take and that we were able here to share it, and it's brought us closer, to Jesus than we've ever been. And that's all due to Easton and autism and hearing loss and all those things we've had to go through.
So I'm sitting here just kind of waiting for the ball to drop because there's so much in this story that we haven't even gotten to yet. Both the goodness, but also just the difference, as you talked about, in the sense of how you processed it versus how Tyler processed it,
Mm,
and the things that you learned as far as teaching each other, but also teaching Easton.
mm,
What would that like? I mean, how was it different in far as processing those emotions, Meredith, Tyler? I mean, just kind of what was that like for you, and how was it to watch each other? Um,
mm,
you know, Meredith is probably, oh my gosh, why? Tyler
mm,
may not be saying much of the why, but he's
mm.
still, what, how did you encourage, support each other through that? That's kind of the
Yeah.
first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah. Do you want to answer? Or you want
Well, I can say that for me, it was, as a husband, you want to stay strong when she's broke down. You want to stay strong, and so, it was a good balance. It was hard to balance
to?
the trying to be strong for her, but also trying to, um, suffering myself, and so it made me vulnerable, and I'd break down in church singing some of the songs, and I'd cry all the time, when in worship. At that time had the little iPad at the front of the church recording. Somehow I got stuck doing that, and we were singing that song "Same God," pretty much once a week at that point. And there's a part of that song where it says, "I may not face Goliath, but I've got my own giants." And I could never get through that part. I'd sing to the top of my lungs, and it'd be me and Mel singing right beside each other. And then at that part, I'd have to step off in the wing because I'd start crying at that part every time. And so it made me vulnerable, and probably took me to the altar more than probably. I honestly don't know if I've ever been to the altar before
Mm,
then.
mm,
And so I could see how it was tearing me down at that point, to later on realize how it was going to build me up, you know. And so I
mm,
think that was a turning point from my life. And we talk about John 9, and so that the works of God could be seen through him. And you slowly started seeing it then, because it wasn't too long after that someone asked us to give our testimony. Jacob asked me to speak at men's club, and that was the first time I'd ever spoke in front of anybody. And then a couple months after that, Miss Ann asked us to speak for whatever Sunday it was, but we both got up. We split the service, and we both got up in front of the church, um, and that was just a starting point, And I could go on and on about the things that we've been through since then, and how God has shown through us since then. But I don't know where Meredith's at in the timeline, to be honest with you. But one of the coolest things she talks about God answering when you ask. One of the she has a really good testimony about that. But
I'll share that soon.
we might go over time, guys.
Okay,
I
I
told
don't
Heather, I
care.
said, we get really excited
We just had
about
a lot's happened in the last 4 years. But I'm gonna tell you, one of the coolest things ever happened to me in my life. The first time I ever really heard God like answering me was we went to a Matthew West concert, and I think we went to 4 of them in a year because the lyrics to his songs were just the words we couldn't say. And so we listened to him on repeat. And that song "Don't Stop Praying" was not out yet, and he sang it for the first time in front of people that night we were there, and it was a slow acoustic version. And when he sang one line of it, me and Meredith looked at each other and we were both bawling in the crowd. We were like only ones like in tears, about to fall to the floor. And that was a Friday night, and the very next Sunday, we went in and I thought about the lyrics of that song, and we went back to the altar. And I mean, for the first time ever, I was like angry, not like angry with God, but just like telling God, like, hey, something's got to give. I want Easton to say a word. And that Monday, he said 9 words.
And up to this point, like Easton really, like when you say a child doesn't talk, like it wasn't that he was just quiet. It was like, no, he literally did not say any words. And so like when we went for his autism evaluation, he could say, I think 3 words, and he wouldn't use them spontaneously. Like it was just things we had heard him say in the past.
It
So
was like a repetitive, like just repeating.
so for us, we both, like he said, we went up to that altar, and for him to say 9 words the next day, it was incredible.
You're like, all right,
So,
God, I hear
Yeah,
you.
we hear you.
so I want you to know that in preparing for tonight's episode, one of the things, anytime I think of y'all, I automatically tell Alexa to start playing Matthew West, and that was the first song that came on this morning. And I don't know, it's just interesting because as you were kind of telling your story, Meredith, I'm sitting there going, let's get to this, let's get to this, let's get to that. But then I don't want to rush it. But I just think I think it's so fascinating. Again, I don't want to rush it, but it's just so,
No, because we're giving them all the time they need.
no, well, that's
We're
good.
getting there,
But
Champ.
I think it's so fascinating that we want to rush through life. Like we want all the good stuff. If you're in a candy jar or you're in something that you really want, like Christmas, we want it and we want it now. And
Yes.
so, but how often y'all have had to kind of walk those roads of, Lord, I'm facing my giants, but you're not answering. Lord, I want you to pray, like I want to pray and I want to trust, but you're not doing this now.
Right.
How much longer am I going to have to wait until I get to this? And then as you sit here and tell the story, it's like, but yet he said yes.
And
There
it's
was a
And
lot
there
okay.
have
of
been times where he said no too. But he's been so faithful even in the saying
And I
of
wanted
no.
to point out too, you mentioned about just saying like, God, you got to show me something. God, how am I to do this? What about, and I think it's okay. And I've even told Champ like this. Obviously, I have a lot of trust. I walk by faith, not by sight. There's a lot of times that I had no idea what next week was holding, or I just always said I know who was holding it. And I think it's okay to sometimes say, well, God, I'm not mad at you, but you've got to show me a way. You got to give me strength to get through this because I'm not you. And I've got to have something to help me get up in the morning and face what I've got to face. And I mean, obviously my mom has gone through so much with me. And sometimes I sit back and think how much God put in her just to be able to face things that people could never imagine. And that's what y'all have to go through. You might not know how you're going to get through that day, but it's like hour by hour. He's just showing you, okay, well, you're going to do this and you're going to do this. But I think it's totally okay to break down and cry sometimes too, because it is hard. And it's harder than most people think.
Well, I think right now we're actually reading through and the Bible, and right now we're doing a little bit of Psalms, and I think some of David's prayers, we joke, we're like, man, he is so bold,
like he's so honest with how he's feeling.
and
He
I'm
was
like,
like,
maybe maybe we all need to be a little more bold, and be specific. I think we're scared I think we're scared to ask God things sometimes. We're scared to tell God things, you know. He might not answer you, but you can tell him, you know. And I think we all could be a little more bold in our relationship with the Lord, but also in what we're asking Him.
No, I'm gonna switch gears a couple of times. Meredith or Tyler, what has it been like to kind of watch Easton grow? Like, how has the transition both in the growing and in the miraculous, honestly.
Mm.
And there's way more to that story that we'll get to in just a few minutes. But just the growing, but the like you as a parent, as a mom, as a dad have to kind of push to say like you could have said, well, I'm not going to push him to do X, Y, or Z.
Mm.
But or I can, and not out of a forcefulness, like I want to be mean, I want to have iron fist, but I want to
Mm.
see what is he capable of. And I just think share about some of those things because I think there's been things where you've pushed and you've seen not only
Yeah.
just the miracle, but just the goodness of the Lord being so faithful in those things.
Definitely. So one of the biggest things we struggle with is wondering, or I know especially I did, is did anything that was offered for him, I would do it. I was like, we do speech therapy, we do OT, we do early intervention, we do music therapy, like anything that could be offered, I would do it. But then I would always worry, like, okay, but am I doing too much? Like his little brain, because he was 2, 3 years old. I was like, this is a lot for a 3-year-old, I was like, even one developing typically,
You
I was
still
like,
want him to be a kid
yeah, I
too.
was like, I still wanted him to enjoy, so it was very difficult, especially in the beginning, because I was always wondering, like, am I doing too much or not enough? But as we've watched Easton grow, like, he is incredible. He really is. And you realize when you don't talk, like, you observe a lot. So think about, like, if you were just to sit with somebody and you're not speaking, but you're just watching what they do. We started to realize, like, that Easton, he has so much in his brain that we have no idea of, like, at this stage right now. So he's 5.5. He knows other languages. We hear him singing Baby Shark in like Japanese and Spanish.
You know, there'll be numbers in Korean, like
Hmm.
the Korean symbols, and he'll tell you what they are, and they match up perfectly.
He's always trying to change the language, like on his
What?
iPad. And
We turn our Netflix on sometimes, and it's in Japanese, and we can't watch it because
yes.
until he decides he wants to change it.
So like
Um,
he has so much like in his brain, and so that has been really cool, like to be able to watch that over the last few years, especially. And right now he does school and ABA therapy, and that has been like the perfect combination for him. Like he's doing well in school, he's doing well at therapy, and so it's been really exciting to watch him in an environment where he's thriving now, as opposed to in the beginning, we were really kind of struggling to find the right combination. So, but he's incredible.
I'm just like sitting here thinking about languages, and I'm like, dang, I took like 4 years of Spanish, and I can't even speak it
I'm
that
telling you,
fluently.
I mean, I'm sitting there going, well, I know his mom and daddy are really smart, but
yeah, we're not that smart, champ.
I mean, I know they're like brilliant people, and I've always loved them and admired them. But come on now, we stepping up.
No, my mom always jokes. She says, "I know Easton's probably looking at us like y'all are a bunch of idiots. Like, what are y'all doing?"
I tell him all the time, like that's probably why he's not talking a lot because he's still trying to process other languages, or maybe he thinks English is dumb.
But it's been
What now?
fun.
Do y'all know like other autism parents that you have been able to like kind of build a support system with? Because I can imagine that would just be so important for somebody that walks the same
Mm,
path to just, I mean, because it's just different when you have
mm.
somebody that never has a child that faced challenges to talk to someone that, they live the same life with, an everyday struggle. I
Right.
guess have y'all met more people because of kind of being exposed to the autism world?
Yeah, definitely. So, Florence has a big community of it. So we have the Miracle League has been the biggest thing for us. It's a baseball league for children with, and not just autism, like any kind of disability.
Yeah.
And that has been a blessing, like for sure, because the very first game we went to, I remember it being like, this is the best thing in the entire world because Easton got to just be Easton. Like nobody was trying to make him
No pressure.
conform to like, this is what the world says you should be doing as a 4-year-old, you know? So we've been able to connect with some people through there and, trying to think.
Well, and it started way before that too, because her aunt who lives here in Florence,
Mhm.
one of her best friends was, I don't even know what her job title was, but when we first started even thinking that Easton might have autism, she started coming to the house and working with them, you know, because that's what she did in the school system.
Mhm.
And she's the one that connected us with that because she's like big into that. And so it was working long before,
Mhm.
you know, with her working with Easton and then her getting us involved in that. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, that's probably been the biggest.
It's funny too, like it depends on also like your where you're at, like in your grief process, honestly, like because when he was first diagnosed, there was a like a community, I can't remember what the name of it was now, but it was like a support group like that you could go and meet at. And they were wonderful. But I remember being like early on in my walk, I was like, this does not make me feel better, you know, like I'm scared of the future, you know, like and like it didn't make me feel better. Now I should go because I'm in a much better spot. I was like, I probably would be much more contribution, you know, to that group. I was like, but Florence is really they are really big like in autism, especially autism and having like a support. So we've been able to get connected in a lot of places here.
I- I'm just first of all, I'm humbled that y'all are here, and second of all, I just think it's so fascinating to see the growth because I don't remember them vividly, but I remember some of those early days of some of those posts of like I was scared and
Mhm.
Lord, I was hurting and folks, I was listening and but was worried about, you were worried about him and just the
Mhm.
the kind of the boldness of some of your openness
Mhm.
and then to watch now. So as we kind of cut back out, we were talking about just the support groups that you've found, the things that you've been able, the community, I guess, that you've been able to build in and through this, and kind of where does the story go from there, y'all?
Mhm. And so, you know, over the last couple of years, we've been really been diving into. We had therapy and school systems and all that. But really, the next part of the story is about Bennett. You know, so we have, of course, our little 1-year-old, and I wanted to share this because whenever
The part that Chant wants us to talk about, we can't talk about that without talking about this.
yes, and so with when we decided the decision to have another baby, I was like, was a hard one for us because we didn't know what were the chances that our next one would have autism. And like you read all these statistics that if they have a brother with autism, it's a higher risk. And so it was a hard decision to have another one. But when we did decide around that time, I was really still digging into scripture and trying to memorize scripture and have it, you know, just where I could just pull it out at any time. And Isaiah 41:10 was a really important one to me. And so for those who don't know, you know, it says, do not be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed. I am the Lord your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my right hand. And I said that verse, I don't even know how many times I've said it, but I just would repeat it on over and over. And so one day I was in the car with Easton and it was just me and him, and I was praying out loud. And I was praying for Easton's voice. I was praying for him to know Jesus. I was praying for all of these things that I wanted for his life. And I ended it with, and Lord, please let me have another baby. I don't want Easton to be alone. And I'm telling y'all, I heard God's voice. It was audible. It was as clear as day. And he said, do not,
Whose voice was it though?
it was my dad's voice. So it was as if my dad was sitting in the car with me, but it was the Lord. He said, do not be afraid, for I am with him. Do not be dismayed. I am Easton's God. And it was the most incredible experience I've ever had. I'm like, it one reminded me that God was my father. I think that was the most important thing, like about it being my dad's voice that I heard was that he was reminding me that he was my father and that he was going to take care of me, that he was going to take care of Easton, and that even if Easton never said another word, or if he never said a word and I didn't know if he knew Jesus, he was Easton's God and he was going to meet him, where he was at. Um, and also that if I never had another baby, that Easton would not be alone, that the Lord was going to be with him every day of his life. But in God's goodness, he gave us Bennett. And he has been the most perfect addition to our lives. But when he was about
2 weeks.
2 weeks old, we took him to have his hearing tested since Easton had his hearing loss. And Bennett actually had the exact same kind.
The audiologist told me, she said, I don't remember how long she's been doing it. She said, for my entire career,
I've seen 5 kids.
I can count on one hand how many times I've seen this type of hearing loss, and both your boys are on that hand. I was like, that's a dumb stat.
But it was devastating.
Wow.
You didn't know that, Champ?
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, well, you're going to love this then. Because we
were a month later.
We were devastated. I was devastated. I was like, I can't believe we're doing this again. I was like, that this is happening, again.
He was following, it was like and he had, both of them were born with hypospadias. We left that part out. So it was it was we were 2 out of 3 for Bennett's life, starting the same way that Easton did, developing typically hypospadias, now the same hearing loss. And we were like, okay, is he going to have the autism? And so that's where our brains were going,
But we went back a month later
to get him fitted for hearing aids.
To get cleared for him. Hearing was normal. And the audiologist said, I don't know how. She was like, I don't know how, but your baby, his hearing is normal. He doesn't need hearing aids, and he's fine.
We threw a party in the
we came out of that waiting room. We were screaming and hollering. The audiologist came running out, and she was like, I want to cheer. But we were so excited. But now getting to the part, Champ, that you want us to get to, because it made this next part so much sweeter, that on January 27th of this year, so 3 years to the date from when Easton got his autism diagnosis, we went back. We've had his hearing tested several times since that initial one.
And matter of fact, the last time that we went, his hearing had actually gotten worse. So they said. We didn't believe it, but they said it technically had gotten worse.
But we went, and on January 27th, 3 years later, they told us that Easton's hearing was normal and that he no longer needed hearing aids. And she said, I have no medical reason for why this has happened. She was like, but Tyler said, I know a name. And he was like, and we call him Jesus. So.
And because obviously, Christians that believe in stuff like that and the unexplainable, the first thing our reaction is God. He can do all things. But for someone, I can just imagine someone coming across your post that maybe they're not in the walk of faith that maybe we are, which is okay. But I can just imagine them reading that and it kind of striking a chord with them to say, wow, how did that happen? Yeah. And so it makes me think as unexplainable things of what kind of testimony is Easton's story given to people that don't really know Jesus in that way, because there's no way to explain it except that. And it's like, I remember seeing that post, and Champ called me that day, and he called me and he's like, did you see Meredith's post? And I was like, no, wait a minute, I hadn't been on it. He's like, I just shared it. And so I went on there, and he's like, I've done read it like 10 times, just over and over. And I guess it wasn't believable. It was just so incredible that you just kept reading it over and over and over to be like, is this real? Like, am I not dreaming this up? What was it like for you both in that exact moment to just hear it's normal?
Yeah. So I didn't get to go because Bennett was sick. And so me and Bennett were actually in the doctor's office, but I knew we suspected his hearing, had been improving some because he had been doing so well, like without his hearing aids. But I told him, I was like, Tyler, just call me, whenever she, gets there. And Tyler called me and he said, hey, she's got something she wants to tell you. And I knew in that moment, I was like, oh, this has got to be good.
Well, here we were actually in the booth, and this is the first time they ever really had paid attention in the booth, and they do it, and they play a little game with him where they make sounds with different things, and then as he hears them, he has to put it in the bucket. All the times before that, everything was wired to his head when he was under. And so we were in the booth, and I told her, I said, look, this is a special day, like 3 years ago, autism diagnosis. I said, I want good news today. Um, and we were doing the test, and he was 100% paying attention to exactly what he was supposed to do. And she just kept like making little excited noises. And I finally asked her, are you excited because I was like, are you excited because he's actually paying attention? Or are you excited because of the results? And she screamed both.
Or are you just saying, are you weird? And you're just, excited.
Yeah, making noises.
I could tell she was excited, and and I was like, oh, she's just happy he's sitting still because he doesn't sit still. And so eventually it clicked in my head, like, no, like this is not that. And so I stopped the test and just started hugging him right there. And I told her, I was like, you about to see a grown man crying. And we went back to the audiologist like normal room, and that's when I called Meredith, and she was actually at the pediatrician's office, and she told them, the pediatrician and their nurses, where we were at and what we were hoping for. And so they heard her phone ring, and they come in, and they said that they already knew because they were listening through the door waiting to see what the response was.
They said, we could hear you in here, and we thought it sounded like happy crying, but they were like, we had our ears up to the door. Like, so there wasn't even a word to there's not even like, joy doesn't even really describe it. It was just so.
Well, I can tell you that even back to Bennett, and then again with Easton, but with Bennett was the first time that I started thinking about. And I stood in our church, and when I announced that Bennett hearing was better, I said this exact same thing, that, sometimes we think about the Old Testament and the New Testament being so different, and then while Jesus was on this earth, that he was performing all these miracles. And sometimes we think miracles aren't happening, and at least not the same way. Jesus isn't performing, like healing people. You hear like cancer going away and things like that. But for me, for the first time, I think that was the first time I ever felt like, man, this is what the disciples felt like, seeing these things firsthand. The only thing we were missing was Jesus, like standing there, and this is the stuff they saw multiple times a day, every day. And I think it's incredible to witness that, even if it wasn't my kid. That makes it better, obviously, for me. But
well, it puts it in first-hand experience. I mean, it's different when it's someone else, but you're excited for them. But when it hits home, I mean, it just puts a whole different take on it.
Yeah, it was incredible.
So I'm like sitting here struggling because I'm not only am I crying out wazoo, which is okay. So if anybody rides by my house, it's me sitting in my office, and they're like, "What in the world's going on in there?" But I think and I didn't want to stop you in the middle of that because no, I didn't know that. I had always thought it was just Easton, and just wow, like
Champ's so excited over this and speechless, he ain't going to sleep tonight.
Yeah.
I'm probably not. I'm probably gonna go back when I get to bed. I'm probably gonna turn on Matthew Webb and be like, "No, I'm not gonna stop praying." No, and I can also hear Mom when she goes back and watches My Lord, what were your eyes and your body and all this other stuff? But go back for a second because I think there's a lot there, and I want to be the devil's advocate for a minute. What would you say, Meredith? And I am gonna flip this completely. What would you say, guys, if someone who didn't walk the journey of faith and said, that's all well and good for you, but that's not how the Lord has worked for me. Like, I know him, I trust him, I want to honor him. I want to be, faithful to him. But he
Mhm.
hasn't answered those
Mhm.
those prayers in this. Like I may, and they may be completely different, or some of them may even be very similar. Like Lord, I need to see,
Mhm.
but yet he hasn't done that. Um, what would you say to them, to
S-
that person?
So, that's right. I don't want to interrupt you. Like, if
No,
he
you
hasn't
got
done.
it.
I can answer that pretty easily because I was there. Like, of course, on now I'm on this side of it where I've gotten to witness these beautiful miracles with my boys. But there was a time where I felt that way. I was like, Lord, I don't see, like, I can see like Easton when watching him, I was like, I was happy watching him and he was good. But I was like, Lord, I don't see how the situation is good. And I don't see how you're working in it. And I wish I don't have it written down. I was like, but there is, again, like I said, scripture was really big, important to me during this time. And my papa shared it with me about it was, I think it's in Mark, whenever a man is asking Jesus to heal his son, he's been possessed by demons. And Jesus says, like, anything is possible if you believe. And the father responds, Lord, I believe, help me with my unbelief. And that was a big turning point for me that I was like, Lord, I believe in you. I was like, I believe in who you are and what you say you do, but I think it's okay to say, but Lord, I do have some unbelief. Like this is not going how I thought it would, how I thought it would. Please show me. And this is what I would be telling someone, be like, pray like for them to show you and to help you with your unbelief because he will. I was like, it's just that waiting period is so hard.
And we're not out of our waiting period. That
Mhm.
was just a glimpse of goodness, and we still
Mhm.
have autism and things like that. And I think this was we were just talking about the other day, like, does the Lord reward you for being obedient? I don't know the answer to that, but I think it was a good sign. I think it may have been the Lord saying, hey, here's a good sign of faith. Like, hey, you guys are, I'm not saying that can happen for everybody, because I'm learning that the Lord's timing is all that matters, and I'm learning that Meredith said I don't know where she got it from, but she always said, not everything's redeemed on this side of heaven. And we still believe that, we still struggle with that because we still have other things we're dealing with. I think this was just a part of the story,
Mhm.
because just because Easton's hearing is healed, yes, we're rejoicing in that, but we're still not out of,
Yeah, the
not the I don't want to say the woods, but
mhm.
like we still have things that we're struggling with, and like everybody does. And so I
Mhm.
think faith, I looked it up the other day, and it depends on what version you're reading, but the word faith or whatever, like faithful, faith, anything like that, was mentioned anywhere between like 200 and 500 times in the Bible. And there's so many things that Jesus said about, because of your faith, or he says, because of your lack of faith, and things like that. And so I think it's important to understand and believe who he is. Just, it's okay to doubt, what he's doing maybe, but not who he is. As long as you
Mhm.
hold on to who he is, it's
He's
even
got
if
you.
he's
Mhm.
got you, and even and
Mhm.
sometimes stories don't end up with a happy ending because all things are not redeemed on this side of heaven.
Mhm.
And I guess I'm asking that for both those that listen to this and hear that and don't understand the kind of the in between, but
Mhm.
also asking that for the person who sees me, who sits there and goes, and I can't contain my joy because I know we know how real that is.
Mhm.
But yet the person, and they don't even have to hear the story, but they see it and they're just like, but how? And I'm
Mhm.
just like, but why not? You know?
Mhm.
There's this scene. I don't know if any of you have ever watched The Chosen, and it's
We
season
love the
three.
chosen.
It's season three, and I think it's about the third episode, and it's the disciple that is little James, and the Lord Jesus is kind of getting ready to send them out two by two to go and do ministry and do work together. And little James is walking. He sees Jesus walking kind of in the city, and he says, Lord, I got a question for you. And he says, I've seen you do this. I've walked with you for years. I've watched you do all this stuff. But here I am still struggling with whatever ailment that I've got. And you
Mm-hmm.
healed them, but you didn't heal me.
Yeah.
And so, and I remember the first time I watched that, and it's almost like one of those things I can watch it 1,000 times, and every time I watch it, I'm just brought to my knees because that's so real.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hear this, even with y'all, I hear this, like, we are so thankful.
Mm-hmm.
We do know the goodness. We do know the greatness, but
And
we know the mountaintops, but we also know the valleys. And
mm-hmm.
that's the reality of life. It's not only just always bad, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not only just always good, and I stay on this, ride the clouds and sing rainbows and butterflies and get roses every day. And I wonder if that's where a lot of people find themselves trying to figure out the road. And the road, and the
Mm-hmm.
thing about it is the road's not always easy. The road's
Well,
got
I
turns.
and
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this about that type of situation too is that I find myself as of course I pray that the Lord would take autism away from them, but I sometimes I do find myself maybe not thankful that he has autism, but thankful that we have let the Lord use this for his glory.
Mm-hmm.
Because neither one, I mean, both of us were Christians before. We were followers, we were faithful, like I said, towards the beginning of this, we didn't have anything to ever test us. My walk, and I said this when I think the first time I gave my testimony, that
Mhm.
my son has brought me closer to the son than I've ever been in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thankful that maybe not thankful that he has autism, but I'm thankful that because of the situation that we've been dealt, that we are closer to the Lord now. And we're not on the other side necessarily. We're still in the middle of it. And I mean, that could be said with just raising kids in general, but now we've got other things thrown in the mix of that. And as a father, you think, okay, I've got to protect my kid. What this freaking world is crazy, and so not only a typical kid, but you add a kid with disabilities in there and the dangers of that, like sending them to school, and all the things that come of that. And I think about not being able to talk about my kid's girlfriend with them or sports, and shooting guns and things like that. But I think for me, the way my life has shifted completely in the way that I view people, the way that I treat people, and the way that I talk about the Lord. And so I'm thankful, for that storm and what it's done in my life. Not necessarily the actual storm, but what the storm has done in my life.
And what I
Well,
hear from both of you is acceptance and acknowledgement.
Mhm.
So you
Mm-hmm.
accept the struggle, you accept the autism diagnosis, you accept that y'all went through two children with hearing difficulties, and knowing that, the road isn't paved easy, even still with the autism challenges. But you also acknowledge, and I've always said this, if we didn't face challenges and if we just had it good all the time, where would our faith grow? And so, just as Tyler's speaking and saying, it brought him closer to Jesus in a way he never imagined, maybe that was the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe God didn't necessarily say, "Well, I'm gonna, have Easton have autism, and you're gonna go through all these hardships, and then you're gonna kind of get this wrench thrown in with Bennett, and then we're going to kind of make it better. And then, all this stuff. Like, you don't plan that. It's like a roller coaster ride. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, God is kind of, dangling the token out there that says, but wait, but
Mm-hmm.
trust. But where am I
Mm-hmm.
taking you next? And so I think
Right.
it's just so amazing that you just have that awareness, the acceptance, but you're not defeated. You're not
Mm-hmm.
saying, well, I'm gonna have a pity party because this is what we have to deal with, and just talking about like what are we gonna do with school challenges? What are we gonna do?
Mhm.
As he becomes a teenager and all these other things. But
Mhm.
I have no doubt you'll figure it out. You don't have to have I don't think there's any manual out there that tells you step by step of what to do with any child. But
I'm trying to find them, so please help me find them.
I was about to say, I'm trying to
yeah,
find it.
yeah, Champ will buy it for you. He loves books.
I will, because I want to sit
I
down
want to
with her
read
and read it.
it.
You said a couple of things, and as we close, you said a couple of things. And if there are other things that you want to chime in as I'm doing these, go right ahead, either one of you. But you said something, Tyler, that I think is probably the most profound of the whole thing. Your son brought you closer to the son.
Mhm. What more could you ask for?
I mean, literally, what more? What more? I mean, and I wasn't going to say this, but I think I will. It's that I don't know where, and again, I've said this 1,000 times tonight. I have, I am a weird duck. I know it. I know it. I've been it all my life. I'm not ashamed of it. But I tell people now that I'm thankful when people have to go through something that makes them suffer or pushes them
Mhm.
outside of what they think they're capable of. Because for those who don't ever suffer, when they get to the top of a mountain at the end of their life, they don't have anybody to share it with
Mhm.
because it's been, you know, easy peasy lemon squeezy, let's roll. Uh,
Mhm.
Whereas those who have had to walk those rough patches, those challenges, you name it, they had to do it with somebody by their side
Mhm.
to push forward. And so when they get to the end and they get to the top and they're like, how did, and then you look back and you see all of the things that, you were brought into and brought through and again, it doesn't make it any easier.
Mhm.
But I think it makes it more attainable, for lack of better
Mhm.
words, that I can walk those journeys. And I'm just sitting here going, I could go for another hour. I'm not going to. I really could because
I know. We're sorry to keep y'all
Oh
past
man,
the
I could
30
I
minutes.
could go over
listen,
more, man.
No, we
Heather does me like a
appreciate
book
it.
now, and I swear I'm gonna walk out of this thing and just be.
No, I text Champ this morning and I said, Champ, I really think we need to do an hour. I think if it goes past an hour, we're good. Like because there was just something about it. Like we obviously don't like to cut anybody's story off and let them feel satisfied with what they get to share. But obviously, some people are a little more comfortable sharing all the details and some
Mhm.
people aren't. But there was something about me and Champ were counting down because we were like, we just think this is
Listen,
going to
I've
just
been
be
counting down
so
this entire
good.
week for months. Okay.
Well,
Um,
I'm the same way. Like I spent so much time thinking ever since y'all have asked me about it, I've just been thinking about it and reflecting. Like I love to look back on like where we've been, like a year ago or things like that. And so to reflect on our whole story, I'm like, I love that poem on the footprints where it's like when I look back in the hardest times of my life, Jesus was carrying you. I'm like, Lord, we have lived that out. I'm like that we went through some of the most darkest times and we're still, like Tyler said, we're not out of it. Like Easton still does have autism, like, and he still has struggles, like, but I know that we can't carry ourselves, that the Lord's gonna carry us. I was like, and that he's gonna get us through, till the end, until we meet him in heaven. So
and I also think, and Heather, I promise I'll do a closing in a minute, but I am
I'm
wound.
waiting for you to ask your favorite question.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot all about that
there's
because
too
I knew
much
who
going
my
on.
favorite person is. But the other thing is, I think, and that's the thing that I love about the way that Heather and I do this and the folks that listen to it is because these are raw conversations.
Mhm.
And I can tell you for anybody who listens to this later, as I sit in my office at 9:16 on a Monday night. And Meredith, you and I've had this conversation before. One of the things that I do when I pray is sometimes I simply pray, Lord, I need to see you today. That's it. Lord, I need to
Mhm.
see you today. Amen. And when I can sit in my office across the screen and know that there's been struggle, but
Mhm.
there's been life. There's been death and there's been resurrection. And so just, I don't know, I like when your work becomes your answered prayer,
Mhm.
it makes everything worth it. And I don't want to get into details, but when my work, when you and Tyler and this tonight's episode becomes an answer to a prayer that I prayed at 5 o'clock yesterday, it makes everything worth it. And so I think I'll ask the final question and then I'll do the wrap up. What does it mean? I want both of you to answer this individually. What does it mean for you to be a champion for Christ at this point or at this stage in life? Meredith?
Okay, I'll go first. What does it mean to be a champion of Christ? I think when I hear that question, like what I hope my life will reflect what the Lord has done for me and who the Lord is. Like I think whenever you're a champion of Christ, everything that comes out of you, I was like, displays him and points people back to him. That's what I hope I would be or hope I would do. What about
Tyler?
you?
Yeah, I agree. I think champion of Christ. I think it's, what are you doing to build his army? And what are you doing to grow the kingdom?
Mhm.
You know? And I think if you live your life trying to grow the kingdom, you're doing what you're called to do.
I'm okay. I'm perfectly okay with
I'm gonna have to
it.
call him after this episode and be like, "Are you all right over there?"
Yeah, all right.
No,
Give me a
no, what you're
minute.
gonna do, Heather, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna call me after this episode, answer the phone and say hello, and then pull it a half a mile out of the way. I'm probably gonna scream or have a shout attack. Um, wow.
No, really, y'all.
Wow.
We do really appreciate y'all letting us be on here. I was like, it has been. I've had so much fun. I was like, but also like, it's been almost full circle for me, Champ. Like I was just sitting here like looking at you, and I'm like, can't believe like me and Champ used to be in youth group together, and now him and Heather are doing a podcast, and they're
Me and Champ were the only males in youth group.
yes, and I'm like,
Yes,
and we're now getting to share
I
our
want to
story.
share
Like,
Well,
this
it's
too
been an
because
honor just sitting here
no,
listening.
Heather,
And
I'm not
I've
done. Heather, I'm
obviously
not
known
done.
him.
Heather, I'm not done.
Well, you're running out of time. Mhm.
Oh, well, I got
We're
7 minutes.
gonna
I
have to
can do
have
this.
him come
I
back.
can do that. I can
Okay.
do this in 7 minutes. I can do this in 7 minutes. You talk about full circle, and I just watched this and think, yeah, I did watch you grow up. I remember thinking for the simple fact that your granddaddy was the preacher, that y'all were perfect, literally. No joke. And now that I'm in that role, not in the same space, but in a different, I'm thinking, oh Lord, I had it all wrong. These people ain't perfect. They just really,
No,
they're
nobody's perfect,
trying
champ.
to do it the best they can. But then I look at just the full circle of both the way that you were taught, um, and I remember thinking, and I've shared this with you that I thought her brother was the best thing since sliced bread.
He's all right.
He's pretty great.
He's all right.
Pretty great. But just the way the Lord has brought some of those things back full circle and to show all of us to get that seat to see, because I think this has not only brought all of us kind of full circle, but it's brought your family, I think, to an even deeper, is it fair to say, an even deeper understanding of who God is and what He's capable of? Is
Mhm.
that fair? I mean, is that fair or is that too much of a stretch?
No, definitely. I was like, because each member of my family, and I couldn't even list them all. I was like, but at one point or the other, we have all, I've had conversations with them where I've been like, I'm struggling with this, and I think you can help me, figure it out. Or like, so all of us have really had to dig in and grow deeper, closer to the Lord and to each other to help me and Tyler be able to get through this. Like, we would have never, my family and his family, I'm like, we would have never been able to make it without their support.
There was one night early on, like when we, I mean, it was still raw, and we had a night. I don't remember what started it. But I mean, you might just ask your papa.
Mhm.
And I think she just said, "Papa, can you come pray with us?" And that night, her papa, her nana and papa, her aunt and uncle down the road came. All of her siblings came. Her mom and dad came, and everybody came. And we just prayed. We just prayed right in the living room, man. And that's one thing about a preacher's family. You get a lot of that, But
Let's
it's one
gather and
thing.
pray.
It's one thing that that's very appreciative of her family is that we will. No one's scared to do that.
Mhm.
And those are comforting things.
And
Mhm.
I can just remember the day that we found out, or the day that you posted it, and I read it a million times, no joke. And I just remember thinking, I wonder what it's like to be the one who has testified about the goodness of God and preached those things and tried to even live those out through your own family. And now you get to sit back and you get to say, wait a minute, that's my great grandchild. Like I get to see that with my own two eyes. I got to
Mhm.
hear about the miracle. And so
Mhm.
I just like I know that that strengthened it, and I know that that made them so aware of who God was. I think in closing, Heather, I'm finally there. This has been wow.
I
Yeah,
agree. I agree.
We appreciate
I
it.
am just
I would love for y'all to come back, like when more stuff happens, just to
because
keep
it's gonna
having
happen. I'm
the.
gonna
That's
speak that
right. We're gonna
now.
speak it into
I
existence.
don't remember the
But
verse,
I
but there's a
just
verse that says, I think it's Corinthians. It says, "Boast proudly about my weakness." That's what I like.
We can
So
do
that's
it.
what I'm doing.
we can do it. But I hope if there's anything that anybody gets from this, it's not perfection.
Mhm.
It's the journey and the story. And when the journey and the story meet and they collide, and the ending doesn't always become happily ever after, but it becomes this is possible with God. That
Mhm.
your son drew you closer to the son, and
Mhm.
your son has drawn like tonight. Hearing your son's story will make people like myself who are jacked up go to sleep and rest with the most indescribable peace because I know that I can rest in the truth of the Son. So I'm
Mhm.
just, Heather, take it away. I don't care what you do. I'm sitting there going, I'm probably, listen, I might stand up and start walking. Heck, I don't know.
Well, please record that. I mean,
Yes. Let's not log off too soon.
I'll check on you in the morning. I'll come get you.
no, I just thank y'all for your vulnerability and sharing this because it's something you shouldn't keep inside. I mean, like Champ said, we want to shout stuff like this from the rooftops, and like I said, y'all are welcome back to just keep sharing. And I'm so excited for this to come out to just have everybody listen to the witness and the testimony. And so
Yes.
keep
Thank y'all
doing what y'all
again.
are doing. You're awesome parents, and your kiddos are awesome. And we're gonna
They're
keep
the cutest things in the
we're
freaking
not gonna
world, but they
stop
are.
praying. Champ needs to go calm down so he can go to bed tonight. And we thank you and we love y'all and don't stop
Thank you. We love y'all
praying.
too.
So check
Thank you
back
so
next
Thanks,
much.
week
y'all.
and God bless.